Good evening, everybody. How are you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, you probably won't see me because I have my camera off tonight, but it is good to see all you fine people in there. Give a thumbs up if you're hanging out. And my lord of the shenanigans already started. I had to come in early. I was planning on starting this up at 9 o'clock just in time for the debates, but it looks like they've already got the shenanigans going on. I can't even see that Rumble is working or not. It looks like it's not. So this will also be streaming over on Twitter. It's going to be streaming over on the YouTubes. It's going to be on Kick. It is going to be everywhere that I can possibly have it going on. Looks like they're tanking Rumble right now, where you can't watch anything that's going on over there. So if we lose it here, hey, Wash Lady, good to see you. Good to see you, Taz. So they've already started their shenanigans. Now there's a possibility, like I said, that this will be removed off of the YouTube. More than likely, we're going to get all kinds of crap happening on the YouTube side. So don't be surprised if this goes down. If it does go down, make sure that you've got the link to the Twitter, make sure you've got the link to Kick, make sure you've got the link to somewhere, because I am not going to stop and even worry about it if YouTube goes down. That'll just be what YouTube is good at, because I'm not playing their games. And if YouTube is bowing down and kissing on the toes of the Biden administration, that means they are just as crooked as them. And yeah, CNN is all up in Biden's crap tonight. Good to see you, Penny Ward. Wonderful, wonderful night. Man, oh man, good to see you, Taz. Silver Eagle, Melanie Beeman. Oh, that's nice. I like that. You did a vid for Taz. That's so sweet. That's so sweet of you. Man, it is going to be a crazy night. Here in just about 5 minutes, they're going to be firing this thing up, and we're going to be pulling up the YouTube portion of it here shortly, just to listen to what these fools have to say. Because oh man, are they just full of themselves tonight? You're an American that lives in Australia. Welcome. Well, Penny, I've seen you here a few times. Good to see you, Paula Carpenter. Yes, it is going to be one of those nights. I can almost feel it coming. I can almost feel them coming, them shutting down because they don't like us showing their shenanigans. Good to see you, Mike Richard. Now, I do have Rumble up and running. If anybody's able to log into Rumble, I can't even pull it up to tell you where the link is for Rumble. That's how bad they've jacked it right now. Like if you go to rumble.com, all that comes up is a blank screen for me. It says cannot find. So if anybody's able to pull that one up, then good luck, because it ain't going to happen over here. It looks like they're getting ready to fire up the debate screen, and I have got it running currently. And the stuff that they're talking about is just absolute bull squeeze. And what I'm going to do is bring this thing down to it, and I'm going to see what happens while I'm running this. Now, usually within the first 5 minutes, it'll give you something. It'll start kicking it black. Well, if it kicks it black, you've been missing you. And oh, well, thank you, Melanie. Uh, open open YouTube doesn't shut you down. You don't have Twitter. Well, if you have Rumble, I'm on there, and I'm on Kick. I should be on all those platforms, every damn one of them. Like if you look on Kick and just look up Shizzy Wisnut, my stream should show up there. Look just like this. I've been missing you too, Melly Beeman. It's been an interesting week. And hello from South Dakota. Good to see you, Mike Richard. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This will be interesting. Well, let's see what kind of shenanigans that they're talking about right now.
Too broad of a brush here. One of the
Oh no.
reasons why I think Donald Trump has always struggled with suburban women in particular is because of that anxiety, is because they do not believe that he is a
Because
uniter.
you're
They woke up every
silly.
morning and
That is
wanted to turn the
silly.
TV off in front of their children. What is he going to do about that tonight? I think is one of the huge questions that
Yeah.
There we go. I'll mute that so you guys can't hear it. But it should be coming up pretty soon. Should be coming up really soon. There we go. That's a little better. CNN doesn't need a whole lot of it. Just mute that thing. I'm working off of one screen tonight because I can't wake up the littles. The littles are sleeping. So we got the littles napping right now. And first they admitted from my mom she's holding on. I don't know if oh, sorry to hear that. Um yeah, it's going to be an interesting night tonight. We're going to be going listening to all of their shenanigans because the amount of rhetoric that's coming out of CNN right now, they are just salivating because they watched their person lose in 2016 and they still haven't gotten over it. Yeah, yeah, they're still salty over that. This just makes them so excited, makes them so happy, makes them cream in their little jeans. But turn the TV off when he's on in front of the children. Well, we don't have reams of film of Trump sniffing and diddling the kiddies. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. We'll see what Tapper has what this guy with the bad makeup has to say. Oh, it looks like they're getting ready to go into a commercial, so we'll minimize that down right now. Yeah, it looks like they're going into a commercial. As soon as the commercial's over, we'll bring this thing back up. It is one of those where they will continue on with their bull stuff. Here it comes. Looks like they're getting ready to start this thing up. It is 9 o'clock, and they are going to be doing
former
this
U.S. presidents as their party's presumptive nominees.
There we go.
In American
See
history.
what happens.
We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This
And
is
we
the
will be
CNN
breaking it for
presidential
video,
debate.
for commercials. So
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you live on CNN.
if it goes
CNN
black, just let me know.
CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol.
And guess what?
This
You
is
can
a
watch it on
pivotal
CNN, or
moment
you can
between
come hang
President
out with
Joe
me because
Biden
I'm
and
much
former
more
President
entertaining than
Donald
these
Trump
fools.
in their rematch for the nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the
Man, he's
American
been
people
juicing.
with just over 4 months
He's
until
been
election
juicing up.
day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside
So
Politics and
we'll see if
co-anchor
my
of State of the Union.
I'm Jake
my
Tapper,
channel
anchor of
gets
CNN's The Lead
off
and
now.
co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will
It can't help
co-moderate
most
this
of the
evening.
time.
Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates
Oh yeah,
tonight.
sure it is.
Before we introduce them, we want to
Facilitate.
share the rules of the debate with the audience at home.
I like how they
Former
say that.
President Trump will
Our
be on
job
the
is to
left side of the
facilitate a
screen.
debate.
President Biden will be
Yeah,
appearing on
okay.
the right. A coin toss determines their
Coin
positions.
toss.
Each
How about
candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and
How about a
1 minute
rub-a-dub-dub?
each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt
Sure.
when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end
Oh
of the
yeah,
debate,
see?
each candidate will get 2
This is
minutes
such
for closing
jacked right
statements.
there.
There is no studio
We're
audience
gonna mute
tonight.
the other guy.
Pre-written notes, props,
Uh-huh.
or contact with campaign staff are
Sure.
not permitted during the debate. By
But they've done
accepting
it
our
before.
invitation
They
to
did it
debate,
with
both
Hillary. We all
candidates
saw
and their
it.
campaigns agreed to accept
Yes.
these rules.
Yes, he does.
Now, please welcome
Yes, he has
the
the
46th
teleprompter
President
hooked
of
up.
the United States, Joe Biden.
He loves it. He loves having his toes licked. You know the music is going to be horrible on this. We've got the most horrible
And please
CNN
welcome
music.
the 45th president of the United States, Donald Trump.
He just walks out there. You know, right now, crowd would be going bonkers. The
Gentlemen,
horrible
thanks so much
music.
for being here. Let's begin
Jeez,
the
CNN,
debate, and
you're
let's start with
shitty.
the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation
is it?
has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took
Hasn't
office, the
slowed,
price of
it's
essentials has
gotten worse.
increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120.
No,
And typical
bullshit.
home
Costs
prices
like
have jumped more
400
than
now.
30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a
Honestly,
look at what I was left when I became president, what Mr. Trump left me. We had
no.
an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right.
That's
The
not what
economy
he said.
collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so
No,
what we
but-
had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs.
No, you
We
didn't.
brought out in a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's
No,
more to be
you didn't.
done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't
You
able to
did
be met
not.
during the month, it was a
He
problem.
is so
The
screwed.
price of eggs, the price of gas,
Oh,
the price
jeez.
of housing.
Just
the price
let
of
him,
a whole
let him,
range of
let him
things.
dig himself.
That's why I'm working so
Dig.
hard to make sure
Dig
I
deeper.
deal with those problems.
Dig
And we're
deeper.
going to make sure that we
Dig
reduce
deeper.
the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units.
You've had 4
We're
years
going
to
to make
do
sure we
shit,
cap
and
rents.
you ain't done
and corporate
shit.
greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in
come on.
corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you had take a look at all that was done in his
Yeah,
administration,
my groceries
he
quadrupled.
didn't do much at all.
Yours tripled. My
By the time he
quadrupled.
left, things were in chaos, literally chaos.
Yes.
And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people.
No, you didn't.
To
You
$15
increased the prices.
for a
You
insulin
increased
shot.
the prices
That's
on
close
it,
to $400.
and then
No
you
senior has to pay
reimplemented
more
what
than
Biden put in
$200 for
people
any
with.
drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what
That's
we're going to
right.
get done.
Thank you, President Trump.
Screw this.
We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the
Everybody
credit
had the
for, and we
Afghanistan
should have,
too.
is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country.
Yes, he
But
did.
other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID,
Mhm.
and nobody thought that was even possible. The
Yep.
only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID.
Yep.
He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job,
That's
and
right.
inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Hitler.
Thank you, President Biden.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he's the greatest
Everybody
economy
did.
in the world. And, the fact of the
Everybody
matter
did.
is that
There
we
is no
find
fact
ourselves in a
matter that you
situation
screwed
where
us.
his
You really did.
economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest
He
tax
didn't.
cut in American history, $2 trillion.
Yes, he had the
He
largest
raised a
tax
deficit larger than any president
Oh.
has in any one term.
of
He's
me.
the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since
He was
Herbert
the only
Hoover.
president
The
since
idea
Truman
that he
that's
did
been as
something that was
recent.
significant. And the military, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we
no.
were still finding ourselves in a position where you had
He already had
notion
the
that
the
we were
pullout
a safe
set,
country.
set up and
Truth
ready
is,
to go.
I'm the only
You let
president
them know when
this
we were
century
leaving.
that doesn't
You're
have
the
any
reason why
this
we
decade
had how
that
many?
doesn't have any
13
troops
died
dying anywhere in the world like
in
he did.
Afghanistan.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can. You
Am I
want
allowed
to
to respond
All,
to him?
everything you
Well, I'm
said
going to
is
ask you a
lie.
follow up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down and then they bounced back. And he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
It was.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country.
Yes.
But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country.
The
country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about.
That's right.
But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent. All of the things he's done, we've become like a third world nation. And it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country. And I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
You don't have to answer.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, he got $2 trillion tax cut, benefited the very wealthy.
No, we
what I'm going to do
everyone.
is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America.
Democrats want to take all of your money.
And what's happening?
No.
They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes.
Yes,
if they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million, billion dollars, I should say, in a 10-year
How many
period.
$1 billion
We'd
did
be
you
able to
spend
wipe
on
out
your
his debt.
campaign,
We'd be able to help
on your
make
ads?
sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person
His drugs are wearing off.
eligible for what I've been able to do with
Yes, he did.
with
That's
the
right.
COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
Biden just shut down.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Shut down.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on
So are
Medicare. They're
you
putting
okay,
them on
Biden? 'Cause it looks like
Social
you're not
Security.
looking
They're going to
good.
destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security.
Several
He will
billion right
wipe
now.
out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he
Yeah,
was right
Biden
in the
is
way he finished
Biden
that
just
sentence. And
is
it's a
gone.
shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to
Biden
be
just
believed.
lost.
Foreign
He's
countries,
done.
I'm friends with a lot of people.
He's
They
done.
cannot believe what happened to the United States of America.
Man.
We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they
Biden
want, and
is
they think we're
done.
stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has
I'm
done
telling you,
is
Biden is
absolutely
done.
criminal.
Just
Thank you,
watching it,
President Trump.
I'm like,
Anna?
This
he's
is the
lost.
first presidential election since the Supreme Court
Completely lost.
overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case,
Yeah, he
temporarily
just
allowing
screwed up bad.
emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban.
Oof.
Former President Trump,
Hey, Elvis
you
girl,
take
good
credit
to
for the
see you.
decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However,
Correct.
the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about
Doesn't matter.
two-thirds of all
Doesn't matter.
abortions. As
Doesn't matter.
president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted.
Yep.
Now,
moving
10
against
years ago or
wanted
so,
that.
they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every
Yes.
legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was, an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now,
I would agree
the
with you on that.
states control it.
Agree
That's
with you
the
on that.
vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions
No,
for
Biden, I
rape,
think
incest, and
just,
the life of the
I think
mother. I
Biden
think it's
just
very
think-
important.
I think
Some
he hit
people
his
don't.
peak.
Follow your heart, but you have to get elected
He's-
also.
he's gone.
And
Like
because
he's
that
gone.
has to
I
do
mean,
with other
I'm
things.
watching
You got to
right
get
now.
elected.
Why-
The problem
why
they have is they're
keeps him up
radical
there
because
is
they will
amazing.
take the life of a child in the
Oh,
8th month, the
jeez.
9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the
Yeah.
baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible
Hey,
thing.
how's it going,
what's
Fatty?
done. The fact
What?
is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And
Scholars
that's this idea that they're all against it is just
I just-
ridiculous.
gone.
And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a
What is
doctor
he
and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states
you're
are able
saying
to
the
do this
federal
is a little like
government should
saying
do that?
we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each
What?
state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young
Not-
women who have been,
Not the case.
including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the
What?
deal: there's a lot of young women are being
This
raped by
is so
their
bad.
in-laws, by their spouses,
I don't know
brothers
what
and
he's
sisters.
rambling about.
it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they
What
try
are
to
you
arrest them when they
saying?
cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border
Jeez.
that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world.
Trump is
And he
covering
opened it
for
up,
him
and
right
these
now.
killers are
Oh my
coming into
God.
our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As
Trump
far
is
as the
covering
abortion is
for him.
concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting.
Oh my God.
And in many cases, it's
Oh.
frankly a very liberal
Oh,
decision. In many
that's
cases, it's the
funny.
opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted,
Oh, and I think,
including the founders,
yeah,
if they
I
knew
think,
about this issue, which
uh,
frankly they didn't. But
I
they would
think
have.
Trump
Everybody
realized
wanted
that
brought
Biden was
back. Ronald
gone.
Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents
Biden,
had
Biden
tried to
is
get it back.
gone. I mean,
I was the one to
his
do it.
brain
And
is not
again, this
even there
gives it the
tonight.
vote of the
What
people,
just
and
happened?
that's where they wanted it. Every
He couldn't
legal
even
scholar
make it
wanted
through
it that
2
way.
questions.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support
Yeah.
any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3
What is Roe
trimesters.
v. Wade?
First
What's that
time
mean?
is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme
That's
situation.
not what Roe
The
v.
third
Wade
time
is.
is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians,
Jeez,
that
that
the
is not
founders
what
wanted the
Roe v. Wade
politicians
is, you
to
moron.
be the ones making decisions about women's health is
Jeez,
ridiculous. It's the
Biden.
last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions.
So, you-
That's how it should be run. That's what
so
you're going
why
to
is
do.
the federal
And if I'm
government
elected, I'm
involved?
going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby.
No.
Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's
Yes,
life is
it
in
does.
danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period.
Yes, you are.
Period.
Yes, you are.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51
Yes.
years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship
No,
said
it
it was
wasn't
the right way to
law.
go.
It wasn't
51
law.
years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's
Yes.
he going to
even
do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans
to this
control the
later.
Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President
He doesn't
Biden, a
even- he's
record number
lost
of migrants
plot.
have illegally crossed
Oh
the
my
southern border
God.
on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a
Wrong.
situation where when he was president, he was taking,
Aye.
separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure they were, the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened?
Good to see
I've
you.
changed it in
Oh,
a
yeah.
way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer
He's
people
not in
coming
tune-
across the
he's not
border
in tune
legally.
with the
It's
century
better than
we're
when he
in
left
right now.
office. And I'm going to continue to move until
What
we
are
get
you
the
talking
total
about?
ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President
What?
Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the
Finally.
safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental
Yes.
institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world. They're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And
Agreed.
he didn't need
Absolutely.
legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president.
You did. You just
Brandon,
did. You
speak to him.
asshole.
But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And
Oh,
people are dying
no.
all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you, President
caravans.
Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, and his administration killed an Al Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers.
What?
Killed three American soldiers. That's the only
Oh, come
terrorist
on,
that's there.
Trump.
I'm
Call
not
him out.
saying that
Call
no
him out.
terrorist ever got through, but the
Call him
idea
out.
they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. That's
Call him
simply
out.
not true. There's
You
no
are.
data to support what he says.
Yes, there is.
Once
There's
again, he's
tons of it.
exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American
As he
history,
should.
unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who
can't
have lived
hold a
here for
job
decades?
here
And if so, how
here
will you do it?
illegally.
Just 1 second. He said we killed three people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the two greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid
does.
policies, people are coming in and they're killing
No, it
our
does.
citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I
Yeah.
call it Biden
Me too.
migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've
It makes you
never
guys
seen
feel
before.
like that.
And
You
you're
cut
reading
things
it
up.
like these three
'em know that
incredible
you
young
like it.
girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is
I
horrible
know,
what's
Bev.
taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally
Biden can't do
an
another debate after
uncivilized
this.
country
Won't
now.
be able
He
to.
doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get
Yes.
a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans
Yep.
are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans.
It's
Nobody
true.
been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved, choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in. And
President
it's a very
Biden,
sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of
No,
them
they're
now
not.
have insurance and their families have it.
They
Their
already
families
had
have
it.
because what happened, whether
You
it was
just
Agent
increased
Orange
what they
or
were available
burn
for.
pits, they're all being covered now. And
Burn
he opposed,
pits?
his group opposed that.
What are you
We're also in
talking
a
about
situation
now?
where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma.
What does this
I was
have to do with
recently
anything right now?
In France for
What does this
D-Day,
have anything to do
and
with
I
right now?
spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I
Okay, that was
cemetery
World
he
War
refused to go
II.
to. He
That
was
was about
standing
the
with
time
his
you were
4-star
born.
general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
What is he
President Trump?
talking about?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines.
Oh,
He made that up.
damn.
He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody
That's
that's
right.
taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was
Yes.
made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents
And
are
his
made up,
response was
just like the new thing with the
just like
16
that.
economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers. So he should apologize to me right now.
Yes.
Four-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one.
Oh, come on,
Number
dude.
two, the idea that I have
It
to
was wrong. It
apologize
was a
to you
lie.
for
It was
anything
made up.
along the line. We've done more for veterans than any
There was
president has in
nobody that
American
said
history.
that.
American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home.
You don't
and their
care about
families,
this
and
country, though,
equip them when
Biden.
they go to
You
war.
made that very clear.
That's what we're doing. That's what the VA
You're sending
is
money
doing
to
now.
Ukraine. If you
They're
care
doing
about your
more for
veterans, you would
than ever
send
before in
money
our
to
history.
Ukraine. Take care of your
All right.
veterans.
Thank you so much.
How's that?
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump,
This is going to be
Russian
it.
President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end
Don't
this
answer it.
war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms
Yes.
acceptable to you?
First of all,
Yes.
our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander in chief,
There
and
you
that's what
go.
you call him,
That's right.
that we've ever had. They can't stand him.
Tell
So
it.
let's get that straight.
Tell it.
And they like me more than just about any of them.
Yep.
And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so
Yep.
he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine, never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran
Yep.
out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything, no money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
Oh, yeah.
President
Guys, make
Biden?
sure you hit that like button.
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president, they
When?
attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing
What are you
when the
talking
attack
about?
took place. Number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where,
Ones you
if
left
you take a
behind.
look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. Listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He
he
wasn't
was
able to
after.
get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops.
Really?
500,000
Is that why
troops.
you're sending them money?
President Trump,
I
as
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine?
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the
Yep.
greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war,
Yes.
and we shouldn't be spending,
proxy
it should
war.
have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so
Yep.
needlessly, so
Will too.
stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
You
President
know,
Biden, you have a minute.
the fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands
Really?
and thousands of people.
You
And
got a
he has
U.S.
made one
president
thing
calling him a
clear.
war
He
criminal.
wants to reestablish what was part of
Okay.
the Soviet Empire, not just a piece.
That's
He
a good
wants
way
all
to
of Ukraine.
start
That's what he
a
wants.
good
And then you think he'll
diplomatic
stop there? You think
conversation.
he'll stop when if he takes
U.S.
Ukraine?
president
What do you think
calling
happens to Poland? What do you think of
another
Belarus?
president a war
What do you think
criminal.
happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why
Really?
that's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October,
Oh,
Hamas
no.
attacked Israel, killing more than
Oh, that's
1,000
so
people
bad.
and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those
So you're
held and
supplying
thought to
Ukraine
still be
is what you're
alive are
saying.
5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian
This is not a
crisis in
fight.
Gaza.
This is just
President
watching a
Biden,
man get his ass beat.
You've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what
Mhm.
additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through the
No,
G7,
what will you
the
do?
Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward.
No,
Endorsed
they
the plan
didn't.
I put forward.
No, they
Which has
didn't.
3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a
No.
ceasefire with additional conditions. The third
They did
phase
not
is
agree.
the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones
No.
standing out.
You're
We're
the one
still
wanting
pushing
to
hard
continue
from,
because you're
to get
allowing
them
it
to
to
accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They
So
don't
just-
work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it just stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest
Yeah,
producer of
exactly.
support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be
Yeah.
eliminated.
Yeah,
But
they
you've got
were
to be
talking about
careful
that
for what
earlier.
using certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do
Really?
that. He's getting all, you got
How's
to
this
ask these
going?
people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location,
have to
because we
slow it
have an
down
ocean in
because
between.
Trump is-
You got to ask them as far as
Trump is
Israel and
beating him
Hamas.
into the dirt.
Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the
Biden
only
has
one who
no
wants to
idea
keep
where
going
he's
is
at.
Hamas.
He thinks he's
Actually,
debating
Israel
on
is
the
the one,
Senate
and you
floor.
should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
Oh,
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never
He's
heard
gonna-
so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out
he's
of
going to
NATO.
say
You ever
he's
stay in
not a
NATO?
bad Palestinian.
He's
So
gonna
he's
pull out
gonna
of NATO.
say,
The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to
Let's-
avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You
What?
want to start the
No.
nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead.
No,
Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland. and
Ukraine's
other
not a
places.
NATO nation.
You see what happens then? He has no idea what the hell he's talking about.
What are you
And
talking
by the
about?
way, I
Biden?
got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because
Uh-huh.
they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to
It
Europe.
smells like Don
President
DeCon.
Trump, just to follow up,
It's funny.
would you support the creation
Love
of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see. But before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, no, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only
Oh,
reason
boy.
that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They
Yep.
asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia at a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time? And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now
Yes,
we're in the same
very true.
position. We're paying everybody's
you.
bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some
That's
of
what it
them
reminds
stormed
me
the
of.
Capitol to stop the
fight.
constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes.
Oh,
As
man.
president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world.
There you go.
All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including
Yes.
weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's
Filmmaker.
saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them
She said
down.
no.
And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C.
That's
They
right.
turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too. And you could feel it. And I said,
Everyone
they
knew.
ought to have some National Guard or whatever.
I told
And I offered
everybody,
it to her.
"Don't
And she
go."
now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Oh, you think that will clip
Look,
that out?
He encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill.
Oh, he did?
Number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute
No,
their
they haven't.
sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation, I don't know
Yeah,
how
his
many
charge
cases,
worn off.
scores of
Exactly.
cases, including the Supreme Court.
What are you
And
talking
they
about?
said, no, this guy is responsible
what?
for doing what was
Of
done.
what?
He did do a damn
Of what?
thing,
Of what?
and these people
Biden,
should
say
be
it.
in jail,
Of what?
and they should
Of what?
be the
For
ones who are
what?
being
For
held
what?
accountable. And he wants
For
to
what?
let them all out. And now he says if he loses
All he
again,
has to
such a
do after
whiner that he is, that
Biden.
there could be a bloodbath.
Thank you,
For what?
President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on.
What are you saying?
And I asked him the first
What are
two
you
debates
talking
we had, the debates we had first
What are
time
you talking
around.
about?
I said, will you
What are you talking
denounce
about?
the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The
That's
idea
not
he's
what he said.
refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will
What are
you
you
denounce the
talking
people
about?
who attacked that Capitol?
What are you talking
What are you
about?
going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents.
Yes.
You just talked about members of the Select Committee on
Yes.
January 6th going to jail.
I would.
Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a
That's
failing
exactly
nation.
what you said.
My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor, having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're
That's right.
lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir.
I'm just
Well, you want to
panicking,
respond?
yeah.
Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
What?
The idea
What?
that I did anything
You're
wrong
going to give him a minute
relative
to
to what you're
respond. You
talking
ain't
about
give
is
him a minute to
outrageous.
respond
It's
on
simply
the
a
last
lie, number
one?
one.
Oh, I
Number
see.
two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just
What did
because
he,
you're
that's what
president
he said.
is wrong. It's simply wrong. No
That's what
president's
he's
ever spoken
doing.
like that before. No
That's what
president
he's
in our
doing.
history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many
Of what?
billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of
Don't say
having
it.
sex
Don't
with
say
a porn
anything.
star on the night
On what?
while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking
Really?
about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Really? That's what he's
Give you a
using.
minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high ranking official at DOJ into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues.
You've got a whole bunch of them, right?
I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought he had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq because of Iraq. I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said,
she didn't.
What do you think of those people? The people
who got killed,
the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say? Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas, were fine people. This is the guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. Good things Hitler's done. That's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
Not what he said at all.
President Trump.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
That's right.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
We'll do that for a bit. Oh God, I think they've got to go get Joe some more drugs because he is in bad shape. Biden has no idea what he's talking about. None at all. That has been made very clear. He has no idea what he's talking about. He is rambling about something. Yeah, that's why It is so bad. It is so bad. Just watch. I don't know what he's talking about. This it was, he was the one that set with the KKK and raised him from this work. Jeez. Yeah, it is completely. Yes. One has to. One has to get it. Trump doesn't drink. This. I think Joe lost it. I really. With the first two questions, he lost everything. His mind went completely blank. I don't know what he's having flashbacks of, Amos Girl. He's having flashbacks of something. That was the craziest thing. No, I mean, let him have, you vote for who you want to vote for. It is absolutely, yes, we know. Yeah, audio I can't, it's pretty bad. I wish I could make it happen. Wish I could make it better, but I can't do that. Actually, I may be able to see if my audio is better. Let's see. Does that work a little better? Maybe, maybe not. That better. A little worse. That's better. Yes, that is going now. Excellent. Yeah, it is. It is crazy that we've had to listen to this silly garbage. Oh, it's so bad. It is so bad. Thank, thank you. Thank you. I don't normally use the headset, so I was hoping that took care of it. Wonder what drugs he's on. It only lasts a few minutes. Yeah, I think you started seeing. No, it's this is not making Biden look good. It makes him look just completely lost, like so lost, so gone, so out of it, not with it whatsoever. Because he's rambling about things that happened whenever back way back. Oh, thank you. Oh yeah, here we go. It's coming back. Here it is.
Debate live from Georgia. Let's talk about
Oh, yeah.
consistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families.
Wrong.
Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white
During-
Americans.
during all
What do you
of
say to
Trump has
Black
been
voters
around.
who are disappointed that you
Biden.
haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three,
That's not true.
they're trying to provide
just showed
housing
you
for
the
Black
stats.
Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their
no.
houses. And in addition to
What are
that,
you
we
talking
find
about?
that the impact on the,
Oh, geez.
the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide
is
for
he talking
childcare
about?
costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market.
What
So
are you
there's
talking
more to be
about?
done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to
He
Black
just
voters
corrected
who are
himself.
disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000
If anybody's
tax
listening
credit
to this,
to be able to buy their first home,
why would you
so they can
why
get
would you
started.
cast a
I
vote
made
for
sure
this?
that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing,
What is he talking about?
anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt,
Oh
all
God,
the
this
rest
is
is forgiven
bad.
after 10
He's gonna
years.
make it
Millions
stop.
have benefited from that.
Make it
But we're
stop.
going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the Black people
Yes.
is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black
Listen
jobs
to
now.
mean
And it
tweets.
could be 18, it could be 19, and
The
even
good thing is
20
you don't have
million
to read
people.
it if you
They're
don't want to.
taking
That's
Black
the beauty
jobs
of it.
and they're taking Hispanic jobs. And you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you.
Yep.
President Biden.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment.
Oh,
He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands and millions of jobs
no,
for
you
individuals
didn't.
who are in all communities, including
geez.
minority communities. We made
Oh.
sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're
Oh.
$8,000 per person in the family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get
Picture
rid of the ACA again.
8 years
They're going
ago
to try again if they win.
and debating
We find
something like
ourselves in a position where the
8 years ago.
idea
Just
that
picture
we're
8
not
years ago.
doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity
for
and making
me,
sure
just
people have a
in,
shot to
12
make it.
years ago.
There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it
Oh
by
my
his
God, the amount of
tremendous
leeway they're giving this moron.
malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Oh,
Thank you. Another persistent
What
challenge
is he
is the
talking
climate
about?
crisis. 2023 was the
No, it's
hottest
not.
year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the
On average.
devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger
No,
hurricanes, and rising sea levels.
no.
Former President
Why?
Trump,
Why
you've vowed
against
to end
cold
your
weather?
opponent's climate initiatives, but will you
Yes,
take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me
you
just go
can't.
back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the Black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that.
If I were Trump,
Super
I wouldn't
predators was
answer
his name.
anything
And he
about the
called it to him
climate.
for 10, and they've taken great
Screw you and
offense
your
at it.
climate
And now they
bullshit.
see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically Black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones.
Yep.
And the biggest beneficiary are Blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the Black population because he's done a horrible job for Black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as
Now, there's
president
quite a few,
to
Beth
slow the
G.
climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate
too.
clean water, and I want absolutely clean air. And we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever. And we were using
Biden's completely
all forms of
lost.
energy, all forms, everything. And yet,
Don't you even worry
during my
about it.
4 years, I had the
We got
best
you, girl. We got you.
environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea.
You don't know
saying
where
that he
you've
said is
been.
True. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. In history, we find ourselves, and by the
Like
way,
what?
black colleges.
You're talking about
came up with
legislation.
$15 billion
You're not
for
legislature
HBCUs,
anymore.
historic black universities and
You're
colleges,
the president.
because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these
Oh.
laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of
What
doing
are you
what any white
talking
student
about?
can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in
Oh.
high tech. We're in
Oh,
a situation where the idea that he is
so
claiming
bad.
to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment.
What are you talking
Out of the
about?
Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord,
As he
I
should have.
immediately joined it, because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, where there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about
Yeah.
it. He must undo all that I've
Yeah.
done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion,
Yep.
and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because
Right.
I didn't want to waste that money, because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before, insulin.
There you go.
I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took
Yes.
care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all
He's
of our
right.
medical programs, because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to
Sorry
take
to hear
care of
this,
people.
Jimmy.
But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our
Rough.
schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
Yep.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get its under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're
No, we're
making
not.
significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made
No, you won't.
significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress.
Acts of
We
what?
set up a climate corps.
Slave
where
children?
thousands of young people will learn how to
John.
deal with just like the Peace Corps, and we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many
Wow.
older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing
So
is done
bad.
to Social
So
Security,
bad.
seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now,
What does that mean?
everybody
What does
making
that
under
mean?
$170,000
What
pays
does that mean?
6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck, from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires
What are
pay
you
1%.
talking about, dude?
1%. So no one I would not raise the
What are you
cost of Social
talking
Security
about?
for anybody under $400,000. After
Reinhard,
that, it
dude.
began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by
What?
increasing from 1%
What
beyond
is
to be able to guarantee the program
You
for
don't
life.
understand what you're saying.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able
just-
to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing I'll
It
do
won't.
is to defeat this man, because he wants to get
That
rid
would
of
keep
Social
it
Security.
solvent
He
for
thinks
1
there's
month.
plenty to cut in Social
You
Security.
take
He's
all
wanting to
the
cut Social
wealth,
Security and
all
Medicare
the
both
billionaires in
times.
the
And
United
that's what,
States,
and if you look at
all the
the program
trillionaires,
put forward
all
by
the
the House
millionaires in
Republican caucus
solvent
that he,
for
I
1
believe, supports,
month.
is in fact want to cut it as
Oh,
well.
Jesus.
The idea that we
Money
don't need to protect our
just
seniors
in it.
is ridiculous.
Oh.
And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before.
No, it
And under
doesn't.
the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where
STJ.
400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where I talk about education for Black communities. I've raised
So
the
bad, Jake.
the amount of money for Pell Grants,
So bad,
another
Jake.
$8,000. So anybody making under
Love it.
$70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
You don't
So
even
I've
understand
dealt with
what you're talking
politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He could look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing. And it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions,
What
he
happened?
talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why
because
we have
the
the most
illegal
successful
aliens?
economy in the world. We're doing better than any other
don't.
nation in the world.
We don't.
And by the way, those 15
don't,
Nobel
you
laureates you
moron.
talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and
Nope.
inflation is going to increasingly go up.
No.
And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue. But the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
President Biden.
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Mhm.
He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now, all of a sudden, he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a a nothing deal, and it
But you
reduced
still
it a little bit,
graduated,
a
Risa.
little bit,
You
like
still
this much.
graduated.
It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country
least
to
he
either be
graduated.
destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut.
Maybe.
We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of
Oh,
America.
Jesus.
There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world. The
We
finest in
did.
the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one.
Yeah,
wants to
they
screw
do.
around with us. Nobody. Number one.
Yes, they do.
Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't
Jeez.
joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or
Online. What are you
58, don't
telling
hold
me
me
to
the
go
exact
online? I'm
number.
watching right now.
Presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history, one through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not
Sure.
that's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did very
Yeah, we
virtually
know about
nothing
you and
with
your
childcare.
child care.
We
What
should
are you talking
significantly
about child
increase the
care
child
for
care
now?
tax credit. We should
What are
significantly
you
increase
talking
the
about child care?
availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work.
What
And
are
we
you
should encourage
saying?
businesses to have
Thank you, President
child care
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make childcare more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody
Well,
ever cut
that doesn't
taxes like
say
us.
much.
He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4
That's
times. He
right.
wants
That's
the
right.
Trump tax cuts to expire. So
Oh,
everybody,
Dad.
including the two of you, are going to pay
Thank
4
you
to
so
5 times.
much. We gotta
Nobody
stop
ever heard of
seeing
this
you later.
before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd
Got
see
something for you
politicians
later.
talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country.
Yes, they were.
The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes on middle-class people.
Oh,
I said I'd never raise
so
the tax
bad.
on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming in the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year
No,
more because they're
That's
going
not
to
how
have to pay the
tariffs
difference
work.
in
No, they
food
don't.
and all the things that were imported. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped
God.
the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of
What are
$5
you
trillion
talking about?
over the next 10 years,
You are in
which is going to
charge.
fundamentally bankrupt the
Look
country.
so weak
You have the
right now.
largest deficit of any
What are you
president in American
babbling
history.
What
Number
are you
one.
talking
Number
about?
two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
were at the
President Biden.
highest. You lost.
Thank you, President
$160.
Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes
don't
of
know.
addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He
Right.
never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we
Just
were doing
that right
very
there.
well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's
Nice.
ever had before, any
Jab a
country,
needle
in
in
every
2
way.
years. Way to go.
And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border were, it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can
Nice.
spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he
Yes.
came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low, because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways, but the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him, because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we
Oh,
use
wow.
the machinery that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes
Oh,
across the border.
Jesus.
And it costs a lot of money. That was part of
Yeah.
this deal we put together, this
Each
bipartisan
machine
deal.
costs over
More fentanyl machines,
$30,000.
more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of
And they're
all
not
across the
accurate.
border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he
No,
never
that's
argued
not
it's
what he
not a good
said.
bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those
No,
machines. And we're coming
because
down
your
very
stock
hard in every
wants them.
country in
Because
Asia
your
in terms
stock
of
wants them.
precursors for
He wants
fentanyl.
those machines
And
because his
Mexico is
stock
working with
is
us to make
tanking
sure
on them.
they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We
That's
need
what he
those
wants.
machines.
Thank you, President
He wants
Biden.
those
President
machines
Trump, and
because his
again, the
stock
question is
tanking
about
on them.
Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage, we always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, the Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for
Told you
billions of dollars
how did I
for
go
the
to jail?
reporter.
Prison, right?
I will have him
In
out
Russia.
very quickly.
In
As soon
Russia.
as I take office, before I take office, I said by literally, as soon as I win the
yeah.
election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's
we'll
probably
watch
asking for
afterwards.
billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had two cases where we paid
don't know
$6
about
billion for 5
I don't
people.
think we get involved
I
in
got
that one.
58 people out and I paid essentially nothing.
Good to see you, Rosie.
Thank you,
though.
President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden,
really?
you would be 86 at the end of your second term.
No, we don't give
How
a
do
shit.
you address
Two craps
concerns
about their age.
about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, nobody thinks
First
you're
of
capable
all,
right
I
now.
spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the
Oh, you
second
did.
youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible
you screwed
situation he left
everything.
me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America,
So,
over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people.
this is not the stupid you're
The
looking
whole
for.
idea of computer
is
chips.
not-
We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips,
No,
and
you
we
didn't.
lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas
No,
and to bring home a product.
not true
So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions
did
of
you go to
dollars
South
here in
Korea?
the United States.
What did you go
And
to
they're-
South?
guess what?
When did
Those
you go to South-
fabs they call that to build these chips. Those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans all over from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40
Yes,
seconds left.
it
Would you like to
would.
add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow We are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things
No,
done.
we're not.
We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and our those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong Un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't
What
want
are
to
you
screw around with
talking
us.
about?
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82
You said
at the
they
end
have
of your
54
second
years
term.
because he still
What
thinks
do you say to voters who have
Trump is
concerns
president.
about your capabilities
Why
to
do you
serve?
still think
Well, I
Trump is
took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like
It
go
just-
through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships.
was
To do
the-
that, you have to be quite smart and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And both, one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank
just-
you. President Biden?
knocked the snot
You can
out of
see
her.
he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds.
What?
Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6.
What are you talking
And
about?
but by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag.
What are you,
Think you can do it?
what are you talking about?
He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
I
8,
was a 6. I was an 8.
but I had, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay, let's
you know,
let's
you know
not
how
act
many
like
rounds-
children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's
Right.
not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time,
Oh,
and
God.
also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever
Absolutely.
talks about
I
that. They
agree.
talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III?
That's right.
Let him follow and win, and let Putin say, "Do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want." There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all and required response. The idea,
What are you
I
talking
can't
about?
think of a single major leader in the world
You can't even think
who
of a
wouldn't
single
trade places
thing.
with the job I've done, what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own
No, we're
safety is
not.
at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border.
Dude,
Then you have a war.
he's calling for
President
World War
Trump, as
III
I come
just
back to
now.
you for a follow-up,
Biden
the
just called for
question
World
was,
War
will
III.
you accept the results
Holy
of this
shit.
election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he
What
said,
the
if I might,
fuck?
Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and
shit.
Biden.
Biden just called
They
for
took
fucking
no
World
land,
War
nothing
III.
from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do
Holy
it.
fuck me.
Not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have
Oh,
never
crap.
started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with
Jesus
Ukraine and
Christ.
Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous
Holy
cities
shit.
with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never
Biden just
attacked.
called for fucking
President
World
Trump,
War
the question
III.
was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
He doesn't have to answer
If
your
it's a
question.
fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much
Biden
rather
just called for
accepted
fucking
these,
World War
but
III.
the fraud and everything else was
Holy shit.
ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week.
Don't worry,
But
Beth.
I will absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country.
He
I
just
would be
called
very
for
happy
freaking
to be
World War
someplace
III.
else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political
God.
opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're
Oh
a
my
whiner.
God.
When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in
Holy
America
crap.
said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more
Holy
from the
crap.
CNN presidential debate live.
He just
from
called
Georgia.
for World War III. Holy crap. Oh my God. I had, whoa. Whoa. I'm going to be going back and watching that because that, holy crap. Holy crap. That was Joe Biden just calling for World War III. He just said if Putin goes in after Kiev, that would be the start of World War III, that he would attack Russia. Holy crap. Tell me I did. Tell me, people, I didn't just hear that he was calling for World War III. That was just my imagination. Holy crap. president on a debate stage just said that he was going to start World War III. Oh, man. That's not good. That's not good at all. Okay. Yeah. This is something that affects the whole world, not just a few people. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. I was a little concerned there that maybe I'm losing my mind like Biden, but shite. Yeah, your family is in Poland. That's not good. Yeah. Lucky me. I live in near Atlanta where we have Lockheed Air Force Base. Makes me feel comfortable. Wow. Wow. That they haven't just stopped this debate. Very true. Don't trust politicians. No, it's worse than that. It's worse than that, trust me. You have no idea what he just called for. Oh yeah, that's right. You got Oak Ridge. That's right. Holy cow. I'm gonna mull over this tonight. Holy crap. Yes, it was pre-recorded, but I don't think they understood that. All right.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where
You've been in
he now
charge
wants
for
to
the
tax
past
you
4
more
years.
by
You
putting a
fucked it up.
10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I
Yes.
did when, for example, he wants to get away with, get rid of
All Biden
the
has, all
ability of
Trump has to
Medicare
say is three words.
for the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices
Biden
with the
just
big
called
pharma
for World
companies.
War III. That's
Well,
all
guess
he
what?
needs to
We
say.
got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years
No, it
because the
didn't.
government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along.
Yes,
It's
gas
happening now,
prices go high,
and
everything else
everybody
goes
in
up.
America. He wants to get rid of that.
Right, Foster.
I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about
God.
what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country.
What? Like
we're going
what?
to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
You've
Thank
had
you,
4
President
years.
Biden.
You
President
haven't
Trump,
done
you now have
shit.
2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do, all he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He
Yep.
talks about all the stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000
Yep.
times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting
Yep.
a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump,
Right.
President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson
Oh.
Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts.
I
now
don't think
on
Biden can
CNN.
hang. Oh, yeah. I'm coming on the morning. We're covering this. Oh, yeah. That's insane.
The president and former president
Oh, let's hear
making their
what their
way off
bullshit
the
is
CNN
right
debate
now.
stage. Looks like Jill Biden,
Let's
the
hear
first
what their
lady,
garbage
has
is.
come out. Former President Trump walking off the stage. The first debate of the 2024 campaign and the earliest presidential debate ever now in the books and in front of the voters. Tonight, along with Aaron Burnett, the first word on what those voters might make of it from our political professionals, from our CNN
He
Flash
hasn't
poll
been
and
nominated.
swing state focus group. We'll be talking to surrogates, including Vice President Harris, getting fact checks from our Daniel Dale and new reporting from inside both
Don't give a
campaigns. With
shit.
me here,
Two
CNN
shits about your
political
fact
commentator
checks.
Scott Jennings, Kate Bedingfield, David Urban, Van Jones, Alyssa Farr Griffin, and Newsnight anchor Abby Phillip, and David
I don't even
Axelrod,
care
and CNN
about
Chief
Fox.
National
I
Correspondent
just want
John
to hear
King. John,
what
let me start
CNN,
with you. Your
what
thoughts?
they have to say
Anderson,
about all this.
This was a game-changing debate in the sense that right now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party. It started minutes into the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists. It involves elected officials. It
Mhm.
involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they
overdue.
think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are
Holy
about,
crap.
should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say in moments in the debate later, the president got better and got his footing, but then at the end, even his closing statement was a little halting. The contrast between the two candidates. Let me be clear. None of them, and a lot of Republicans, don't think Donald Trump had a great night. Donald Trump broke the fact check machine more than I can count tonight. That will be on the record as we go forward.
care.
He
Don't
refused
care.
to answer some very specific and
You
direct
need to.
questions about his conduct, about January 6th and what all.
Didn't have to.
So that will be dealt with out there. And sometimes there's a parallel universe between the political elites and the American people.
Trump
It'd be nice
didn't
to
have to
see what the
answer their
voters say.
questions
But I can
at
tell you, it
all.
started minutes in. It
Yeah.
started with the first couple of answers, and it has
When this was
continued throughout the night
pre-recorded,
from
they
a, oh
knew
my
it
God,
was.
oh my God, oh my God, to what do we do about this? And it involves very senior people in the Democratic Party, including elected
anybody
officials,
disagrees
saying we
with
have a
that-
problem.
And just to co-sign what John is saying, I mean, the panic that I am hearing from Democrats is not like anything that I have heard in this campaign so far. And a lot of it has to do with, first of all, there was a deep frustration about Trump's lies. I mean, he lied a lot tonight. But the problem for Biden was that Trump was able to take sometimes incredible falsehoods and turn them
Yeah,
into
but
some kind of
even they
argument.
can't cover
Whereas
up on it.
Biden's answers were, in a lot of cases, not coherent, deeply problematic, that he was not able to take pretty straightforward answers and answer them to the American public. And then also at some points, bringing things up that teed up Trump attacks. So there's a real concern here tonight that there's been some real damage done that cannot be undone. Biden solidified the perception among voters, but especially among his base. They were hoping that tonight would be a game changer. They are now seeing a president who is in the White House, who they do not necessarily believe can do this for another 4 years.
David
You just
Axelrod?
saw a president that said he was
Look,
gonna
I can't
cause
argue
World War
with,
III.
with either of them about how Democratic leaders are reacting to this poll. We said at the beginning that each person had a fundamental goal. And for Biden, that goal was to appear energetic, engaged, and look like someone who is capable of serving
Couldn't
for
keep it
another 4
together
years
5 minutes.
for president. That was job number one. I actually think he scored a bunch of points. I think if you just judge
Name
this
one.
on sort of policy stuff, he did score a bunch of points on issues like abortion, for example, on some of the
Zero.
economic issues.
Zero.
But there is a feeling. I think there was a sense of shock, actually, at how he came out at the beginning of this debate, how his voice sounded. About he seemed a little disoriented. He did get stronger as the debate went on, but
No,
by
he
that
didn't.
time, I think the panic had set in, and I think you're going to hear discussions that I don't know
It wasn't
will
panic, it
lead
was
to anything, but there is
Won't
going
lead
to
to
be discussion
anything.
about whether he
just
should
called for freaking
continue.
World War III.
And I think part of it is Donald Trump did not meet his mission either. He could not resist the the temptation to be nasty, to prevaricate about a whole bunch of things, about his own record, about Biden's record.
All right. Enough of that crap. Enough of that crap. They're going to sit there and spin this every which way they possibly can. And that is more than I can handle. It's more than I can handle tonight. Oh, God. Okay. I'm still reeling. Dude called for freaking World War III. Yeah, he got worse as the debate went on. Not better at all. Okay, first of all, let me address this really quick. I think we should remove the Electoral College. No, and no, and no. The reason why we have the Electoral College is so you don't have cities that have billions of people dictating what rural communities have or do with their money. That's why the Electoral College exists. So that way it's a little more fair and not as skewed. Because if you notice during the last election, almost all the rural areas voted for Trump. A few of the cities did, but mainly those cities voted for Biden. If you eliminate the Electoral College, the rural counties don't count in their vote. Doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. That's the way that it is. Taz, again, thank you very much for your donation. I appreciate it so much. You are so kind, and of course, again, thank you, and I appreciate the hugs. We love it. Rough night, folks. Rough night for Biden. That's all I'm going to say. I've got tomorrow's going to be an interesting one. I'll be interested in seeing what you guys think. Friday morning is going to be a blast because things are about to blow up. Hopefully not literally, but it seems like things are really, really, really bad. Yeah. If you eliminate the Electoral College, we are no longer a republic. No, not pro Biden either. I feel Biden should not be elected because I feel he has dementia. And everyone, have a wonderful night. Make sure that you hit the like button. And geez, I don't even know where to begin or where to start. There was just so much to unload on this that I just can't even begin. I'm gonna have to go through a whole bunch of this stuff tonight and make sure that I look at all that I possibly can, and I swear I wasn't mistaken whenever I heard what he said. But it sounds to me like if this man continues to run the country for any longer, it's not going to end well. And make sure that you give Expert a nice big hug and everything whenever you see him. I will see you guys maybe tomorrow morning. I hope so. Crazy. Peace, y'all.